very windy.
Yeah. Well, yesterday was, but not today.
Depending where you were.
It was
Depending where
very
you were.
cold where I was.
Yeah.
Well, welcome everyone. We're just going to give it a few minutes, allow more folks to join. But we are excited to see all of you here. We have a really fun, action-packed presentation for you today that we're excited to share with you. Oh, Evie is here. Okay, just kidding. I got everybody here now. So we're ready. All right. Well, again, welcome everybody. Welcome to our first Taco Tuesday of the year. My name is Ruby Rose Yepes. I am the past president for the Latino Professional Alumni Chapter, and now supporting in the philanthropic chair position, which I'm really excited to help and support. On behalf of our board members, welcome again. We are so excited to launch this year's events. And I'm really happy to see so many of you joining us for this event that's going to be focused on the power of personal branding. Next slide, please. So we appreciate you taking the time to connect with us as we continue to stay safe and make way through the current pandemic. I know it's all impacting us all in different ways. Each of us has our own reasons of staying safe or for staying safe. But just a reminder that we are all leaders and others really look to us on our standards that we set for ourselves and for others. And, you know, how is it that we're keeping ourselves safe? And so, you know, as the state starts to open up again, just, you know, there's a couple of ways that, you know, finding ways to protect yourself and those around you if you are going to be going out out of the house, right? Or even in the house. So that some of us who may have to go to work, just making sure that you're taking precautions if you are living with other people in your home, you know, just taking precautions to protect you and those as well. And then also finding ways to boost your immune system in general. I know, you know, in our household, we drink a lot of fresh lemonade. I'm very lucky. My husband is always making us fresh lemonade. So, you know, taking in that extra vitamin C to boost your immune system to really help fight any sickness that can come your way. So just want to remind you all on that. And getting into it, I'm so excited about the topic today. Personal branding is something that is very important to me, and I feel that I have built a strong enough brand that has helped me to establish and advance my career. I came to understand the value of networking and building my brand at an early phase in my career, and just really focused on building a strong name. This quote speaks to me for many reasons of why I actually, you know, focused on that. So defining yourself as a person who people know, people like, and people trust can go a long way for opportunities that can come your way now or in the future. So just, you know, one of the things to keep in the back of your mind as we go through this. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my fellow SCE amigos, whom are dedicated to supporting their peers and developing their brand. So first we have Evelia Carmona, who's also an alumni from Cal Poly Pomona. Evelia is a transmission manager at Southern California Edison. She loves her role because she gets to do her favorite 3 things. And we lost our slide, Andre. We are now focused on Joaquin, just an FYI. But she loves her role because she gets to do her 3 favorite things. She learns something new every day, inspires and brings out the best in her team, and is a problem solver. She joined SCE 13 years ago, has worked in transportation services department Department IT, Finance, and T&D for the past 8 years. Evelia was first in her family to graduate from college. She has an undergraduate degree in accounting, an MBA, and certified in project management. She's a Lean Six Sigma green belt and black belt. So Evelia really puts herself out there. She is passionate about making a positive difference in our organization, being SCE, which led her to be a board member for our Women's Roundtable, where she has led several programs and events that have positively impacted many individuals across the company. As a certified fitness instructor and personal trainer, she helps women better about themselves emotionally and physically. Evelia is a mother of 26-year-old son who is currently serving in the United States Air Force, a 24-year-old daughter who recently graduated from Cal Poly with an engineering degree, and an 11-year-old daughter in the 6th grade. And then next we have Leo Labra. So Leo is a certified senior recruitment marketing strategist at SCE. He is responsible for the talent attraction strategy that is helping transform how a traditional utility company magnetically attracts new talent using sophisticated marketing techniques. Leo was named in 2020 one of the top recruitment marketing leaders in the West and has led efforts in having SCE be recognized for their marketing strategy in various forums like Deloitte and Gardner. I hope I pronounced that right. For consecutive years, SCE has been named a top recruitment marketing pioneer across Fortune 500 companies. He currently is the vice president of our Latino Business Resource Group, LEAD. Leo is passionate about empowering employees, fostering a diverse and inclusive environment that advances the professional development of the Latino community. In 2020, he was named a diversity champion at SCE for his ongoing leadership in the diversity space. He also presented at various diversity and recruitment marketing conferences in sharing the work SCE is doing to attract talent. Leo is also currently in an upgrade role where he's overseeing the corporate testing and internal hiring operations teams. Leo graduated with a bachelor in psychology and behavior from the University of Irvine, or UCI. He holds certifications from UCI in project management and Claremont Graduate University in human resources. So I'm going to transfer it over to Leo and Evelia for their talk on power of personal branding.
Thank you, Ruby. Again, honored to be here with all of you and talking to you all about personal branding. So we have a pretty tight agenda that we want to go over with you. So we're going to go ahead and just go straight into the agenda. And if you could just verify that you can see my screen, that'd be great.
I can see the screen.
Yeah, you can see it over here.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Wonderful. Thank you. So we're going to first talk about what is personal branding and why you should focus on it. We want to make this an interactive discussion with you all, but we also have just like steps and we want to go directly into like how you can actually do it, right? And then we'll have Evelia talk a little bit about her personal story and how she's incorporated some of the tips that I'll be going over. And then we'll wrap it up with any questions that the team has here. In the meantime, if you have questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat, and then we'll go ahead and address them throughout, or we'll open it up at the very end for any questions. But with that being said, I first want to start off with the question. So what does personal branding mean to you? So if you could just go ahead and type in your response on the chat, I would truly appreciate that. So again, what does personal branding mean to you? And I'll give it a couple of seconds until I see some of the responses coming in. Good. I'm seeing some responses already. So the way others see you, and you represent yourself, a story you tell to others about yourself, what people remember you by, pitch and sell, getting folks to know who I am and what I represent, pitch and sell, a way to differentiate yourself, the best combination of your dreams and realistic goals, having integrity with all of whom, sorry, it's going really quick, all whom we know. Personal branding is how people know us. So I love the responses. Those are all great and excellent responses. So I'm going to go ahead and give you the actual official definition. So personal branding is the process of how we market ourselves to others. So it's really the process by which individuals differentiate themselves by identifying and articulating their unique value proposition. So I want you all to think about that unique value proposition, because it's something that a lot of companies use from a consumer branding perspective. So they look at it from a value proposition. So what do you have to offer your customers, your consumers? And then from an employer perspective, we look at it from an employee value proposition. So what do people get out of working with us, right? So really then from there, it's like leveraging it across different communication channels and making sure that you're sharing that message and you're looking to achieve your goal, right? Again, I really appreciate everybody's responsiveness on the chat. So thank you for that. And there's going to be a couple more questions that I have for you before we go into the actual how you can do it. So my next question is, why should you focus on personal professional branding? So I think that's going to be actually a poll question. So Andrea will be and the options are career growth, networking, influencing, helping your community, others. And if you have something for other, feel free to type it up in the chat. Good. So it looks like career growth is leading, followed by networking, influence, helping your community, and other. Really great responses, and I love the engagement. Looks like about 80% of you have voted. So thank you for your contributions there. So it matters for various reasons, right? But there's a couple different main reasons that I want to just talk about. And these are just a few, but of course, increasing your opportunities for development and advancement. When you think about, where you're going through your career and what's that next step, like you have to think about, like, again, how people are perceiving you. So that way, as you look to apply to take that promotion, that you really have built a strong professional brand, as well as being a thought leader in your field. And again, I talked to a lot of employees about this this concept here, being a thought leader. What does that mean? So being a thought leader is being known for your thoughts and your perspective on different topics, right? So that's something that you definitely want to aspire to be. You want to be known for a specific topic of your interest and what you're passionate about. And then the other thing is expanding your impact and the reach on different topics that you're passionate about. So we'll talk more about that in a moment when we talk about how you can build your brand. But a lot of the reasons why you want to build your professional brand is because you want to have a lasting impact with people around you, within your networks. And then you want to be able to help in influencing and inspiring those around you. For a lot of us, we're first generation college graduates. We want to be able to inspire our family, our friends. We want to be able to have a brand that is making an impact across our community. And then the other part is building and nurturing your professional network, especially in today's climate. And I want to just briefly touch on that. With COVID, it's been an adjustment for a lot of us. And really, at least for myself, I know that in talking to a lot of my peers, we missed that opportunity to be able to network in person, to be able to build our brand in a way that that has that personal touch. So definitely, with that being said, there's different opportunities that we can leverage in how we can continue to build our brand and how we're nurturing our professional network and tapping into that. I'm sure a lot of you all know this, but about 75% of people find their job through networking, which again goes to a lot of the top reasons why we want to network, right? We want to continue to grow through our careers. We want to be able to tap into our networks. We want to be able to provide something of value. And I think that's also something that's really important. I get this a lot from students, from candidates. Well, I reached out to so-and-so about so-and-so job. And so my response to them is like, well, have you built that relationship with them as well? And I think that's a really important piece that I'll touch on in a moment. But that would be something that we can start off with. And then without personal branding, you definitely lose opportunities to really have that visibility in your marketplace, whether it's in your industry, whether it's within your community. And then we'll talk more about that. What does that mean on a cultural perspective when Evelia talked about her story? But you definitely want to think about, like, how do you put yourself in an advantage, right, versus a disadvantage Again, when you think about applying to jobs, looking for that next career opportunity, looking for that board position, you know, your brand is going to matter when they look at your application for consideration. So you don't want to lose out on opportunities for career growth and opportunities. You want to be able to maximize your reach and your impact. So I want this discussion to be interactive. So I have another question for you all. So what is your current biggest challenge in building your brand? So Andrea is going to go ahead and put up the poll. And the options are time, I don't know where to start, understanding the value of it, or other. And if you have other, feel free to type it up in the chat. Okay, we have about 67% of you all that have voted. And a lot of people are sharing that their top reason is that they don't know where to start. This is great. So with that being said, we're going to talk a little bit about a process that I have that's going to help you with that. So I'm super excited about sharing it with you all. And so we're going to first start off with, your self-impression and perception, right? So I think that's really important to think about. And as you look to do that, you have to start asking yourself questions, right? Such as like, well, how do people perceive me? How do I want to be perceived? And those are the type of questions that you want to start thinking about. And also want to recognize that everybody's at a different stage, whether that's at an earlier stage of building your brand, whether it's maintaining your brand, or again, rebuilding your brand. So with that being said, we're going to go over 4 different steps. And so the first thing that you have to do is really think about how do you want to present yourself and how do you want to be perceived? What do you want to be known for? I know a lot of you touched on that earlier when you were typing, what does personal branding mean to you? Then you have to understand that it's going to take a little bit of effort and time and making it a priority. I had a discussion with one of our vice presidents just a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about like a lot of the feedback that she gets because she's someone that's really present on social media, and she works a lot on her brand. So something that she shared with us, which I thought was really interesting, was that other executives tell her like, well, how does she have the time? And her response was like, I don't have the time, but I make it a priority, and I incorporate it into my day-to-day because it's important to me. It's important how I look to inspire our customers, our communities, and educate others on the work that I'm doing. So I thought that was really interesting because a lot of times, we feel like we don't have the time, but it's really making it a priority. The next thing is just thinking about the basics. So again, who are you as a person? What are your strengths? What makes you unique? And staying true to your authentic self. That's really important when you think about and having and taking that time for self-reflection. So now we're going to go into the actual process of how to do this. So again, I call this a 4-step process: discovering your brand, developing your brand, communicating your brand, and maintaining your brand. So of course, we can't go on without another question. So how many of you grew up in a household where personal branding was discussed? So again, we're going to go ahead and ask the audience here. So how many of you grew up in a household where branding was discussed? Okay. So a lot of you or the majority of you are showing that no, it wasn't something that was discussed, which is very normal. I'll say that. And part of the reason is that as we progress through our careers and different stages, there's a different perspective of what branding is and what it means, especially to our community, right? So with that being said, we really want to think about that as a priority for us, especially as we grow through our careers. Right now, competition is at an all-time high, right? When we think about trying to find a job, there's a lot of people that are looking out for jobs. So how do we compete ourselves and how do we make ourselves marketable so that we can be considered and we can find that next career opportunity? So again, I talked about discovering your brand and what does that mean? So it starts with asking yourself some questions and having insights about, again, who you are and what your goals are. So start off with asking yourself, what are your goals? What are the personal drivers that drive you to accomplish and want to continue to go on that path of what you're trying to accomplish? What are your values as a person? So again, we all have different values. For some of us, it's respect, collaboration, it's integrity. So what are those values that are important to you? And then the other part is like, what are you passionate about? What makes you happy? What makes you feel inspired to want to help communicate out there? And then also, what are you known for? So some of that is also reflection of, again, yourself, and then asking others, like, what am I known for? And what do I want to be known for? Um, what is the area where you have answers to, where you're that go-to person? Like if someone were to ask you, like, you'd have the answers right away. And again, like having that time and having that opportunity to reflect and get insights from others of how they would describe you. An exercise that I would recommend you all do is build a small network of people that you can reach out to, that you have confidence in, and that you can ask them to make suggestions or recommendations about compliments that they have about you, right? And then again, what about you makes people stop, watch, and then say, wow? So again, first is a reflection about yourself, and then it's also getting insights from others. Okay, so that's how you start building and discovering your brand. The second step is, again, identifying, who is your target audience. So when you think about your brand, your personal brand, who are you trying to connect with? And that's a really important piece of just branding in general. I mentioned consumer branding earlier, but when we think about just, branding in general, marketing in general, who are you trying to target? What's important to them? What do they want to hear? What do they want to know? And then the other thing is, again, starting to build your professional profile and online presence. I mentioned earlier that in this current environment, we're not able to interact, face to face with people, right? But there's still opportunities for us to be able to connect with people virtually, just like we are today. And again, being able to network and build that community of people that you're engaging with. Understanding your own unique value proposition. So again, why would someone want to connect with you? Why would someone want to stay engaged with you? What do you have to offer to others, right? Again, I mentioned accomplishments before, but like, what are accomplishments that you've accomplished over the last couple of years that you're proud of, and that, again, you can share and be that thought leader in? And then the other thing is finding personal brand strengths. Again, going back to your strengths, what are you really good at? What can you share with others? What impact can you have? And again, just really taking that time to reflect about yourself. So I shared with Andrea a worksheet that I highly encourage you all to use. It's really simple. It's going to ask you these questions that I just went over. So questions like, what do you do? Who do you help serve? What makes you a subject matter expert? What do you consider your greatest career achievements? What are 3 stories that define you as a professional or pivotal moments in your career? And then what are you passionate about at work? What lights that fire in your belly? What are some of those big ideas that you have? I encourage you all to start working on this as an exercise, and the same thing, like as you look to answer it yourself, ask others as well for their feedback about yourself. I think that's going to be something that's going to help start crafting what your statement will be, right? How your brand is going to be displayed, and what are you known for. So again, be authentic with yourself. So get to know what exactly makes you great and learn to communicate it. Okay. So I'll talk a little bit about communicating your brand. So after you've really reflected, looked at what your strengths are, you start building that statement of, again, what is your value proposition. You want to start creating and communicating a communication plan. So again, how are you looking to engage with people? How is it that your strengths play to how they're trying to work on things? Developing a timeline, and again, being consistent, right? With clarity, consistency, and constancy. So there's different ways of being able to do this through social networks, through virtual presentations, through your resume, through networking, through events. And again, like whether it's articles that you're writing, whether it's your actual presence that you have out there, control that, because I think that's the other part too. How do you manage your brand and making sure that others are seeing you as that thought leader? So here on the right hand side, just have a couple of examples of ways that I've been able to build my brand, whether it's presenting at conferences, whether it's showcasing the work that I'm doing within my different stakeholders that I work with, giving advice about what I'm really passionate about, which is our internship program, as well as career development for students, and then just sharing my own journey with others about how I've been able to get to where I'm at in my career. So again, finding those channels that you can do that through different forums is going to be very, very critical. And then, like I said before, step 4 is maintaining your brand. So make sure that if you're at a stage in your career where you're a little bit more advanced and you've built your brand already, search yourself up in Google. See how you come up. If someone were to go into Google and search your name, what would come up? You can also even set up Google alerts about yourself. Be consistent with how you show your brand. I think that's really important, and walk your talk, right? So it's not just saying something, but it's following through about how you're displaying your brand. Again, for those of you that are on LinkedIn, make sure that you're managing that and that you're constantly engaging people, get feedback, evolve. Again, whether it's sharing articles that you're really interested in, like, so for example, if you're interested in diversity, right? So making sure that you're sharing diversity articles that you're reading across, and that you can, again, become a thought leader. So very important that you think about it from that perspective. So again, going back to step 1, it's really identifying your brand, reflecting. Step 2, it's building it. Step 3 is communicating it, and then step 4 is maintaining it.
Leo, I just had sorry to interrupt you. There's a few people in the chat that aren't sure if they're able to see the current slide. Are we still on the developing your brand slide, 4-step process at the bottom?
No, we should be on the my journey slide.
I think at some point it stopped forwarding the slides. So
Okay.
maybe if you unshare and reshare, that might help.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let me try that again. And again, I'm happy to share the deck after the meeting, so that so you all can reference it, and we'll open it up for questions in a moment. But with that being said, are you able to see my screen here?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to go ahead and transition.
Awesome.
Okay, great.
I think
So
we're good.
Yeah, so okay, so Veli, I'm gonna go ahead and transition it over to you so you can share a little bit about your journey.
Hi everyone, I'm super excited to be here, and I hope all this information is useful to you. So did you guys learn anything new thus far? The chat would be great to respond. I'm gonna take the time now to share my journey and how I personal self-branding was not something that I grew up with either. I saw in the poll that 91% of you who responded, personal branding was not part of the discussions growing up. Can we move on to the next slide, Leo? Are you driving? So I did a little bit of studying to think about, like, why wasn't that something, I was fortunate enough that I didn't go through my whole career and not discover my brand, right? But I'm 43 years old now, so it took me a while to finally discover I was midway through in my career now, and I feel good about my personal brand, but how did I get there? So in Hispanic cultures, family is number one, right? And this is there's links to these, to the deck, so you can go in there and look at the study yourself. So because family is number one, a lot of the time when our ancestors come into this country, all they think about is their family. How can I provide for my family? And what I know the message that I heard, which was in alignment with what I found in the results, is that 75% of Hispanics believe that hard work alone will help you get promoted. And self-branding is not even a relevant topic. That's not something even that they think about, So all this research was done by Pew Research Center. So I'm thinking, okay, well, what about the Hispanics that are out there that are executives? Where are they? So the next slide, if we can go on to the next slide, Leo. If you guys can see, so these two, again, it's going back to the Hispanic executive study. So Hispanics make up about 17% of the workforce across the United States. only 4.3% are executives. That's a really low number. So what does that tell us? To me, it means that, you know what, we're not doing such a great job of putting ourselves out there, and so that people know who we are. You know, there's a lot of very sharp, intelligent Hispanics, right? So why aren't we getting those C-suite positions? And I think the self-branding, that's going back to what Leo is talking about, the self-branding, it's really key to your career. And for those of you who just graduated, I think that this is such a valuable information, because you can start developing your brand today. And it's okay that because a lot of people say, oh, it's all about who you know. Well, not necessarily. It's about who knows you and what you're about, right? Because you can know thousands of people, but if those thousands of people never heard about you, it's irrelevant. They're not going to help you promote into that job. Next slide, Leo. Let's see. I can't see the slide now. Okay. So how did I get started in my brand? I wasn't doing my, I wasn't passionate about the positions that I was in, even though I'm very grateful for all positions that I've had at Southern California Edison. I just wasn't super crazy about most of my positions. The three things that I love to do is A, developing people, bringing out the best in them, 2, problem solving, and I like things to stay dynamic, to constantly learning new things. I finally discovered when I am meeting those 3 areas in my life, I am fulfilled. Like, that makes me happy, because I'm a natural problem solver. I'm strategic. I like to come up with just how to better any organization wherever I'm at. So because I unfortunately didn't, at that time, I wasn't fulfilled 100% in my positions, I looked for other avenues, and that's where I joined, I joined other, like, we have what we call the business resource groups, and I joined Women's Roundtable, where I became a board of director. And in that space, I was able to lead a team and come up with creative ways of how to take the Women's Roundtable and serve our members by, just coming up with different things to get them, to motivate them so that they can advance in their career. And through that, I was able to be seen, and my current manager, kind of tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, you know what? You bring a lot to the table. I can see how you're a natural leader. Come and just look at the job boards in my organization. And so that's kind of like the journey that that led me to this current position. Go on to the next slide, Leo. So along with that, I was in this space of the Women's Roundtable, I was able to, I was able to network with other people in other organizations in my, Edison, Southern California Edison has approximately about 12,000 employees. So if you're just in your little space, it's easy to get lost. So because of I was exposed to more people across the enterprise, other people from other departments besides where I'm at were able to see me, and along with that, I also was able to join LinkedIn and lay out my presence there, and continuously be active in LinkedIn on the different events that I do, the different work that my team does, and it's really important to maintain that brand. Go ahead and go on to the next slide, Leo. So again, this is about just maintaining your brand by the different social media avenues. I think it's really easy now to, because of social media, you can put yourself out there and make a great impact with a lot of people, right? Versus just your immediate circle. Keep going. So again, going back to the self-branding, you're in control of your brand. And I think in the chat, I saw somebody says, well, I think somebody had put out there that they weren't sure how people were going to view them. But honestly, it's all about, being comfortable with who you are, and really getting to know your, what are your strengths, your talents, and your passions, and taking all that and aligning a job or a position that allows you to be your true self, right? Your authentic selves. And I think when you're in a space where you're comfortable to do that, your brand, people will see who you are and what you're about. So, going back to those 4 steps, it took me a while to develop that about myself, but finding now that I'm here, it's like where I truly call success, because I'm doing what I love to do. I love waking up every morning and going to my job and doing the things that I'm really passionate about. So, does anyone have any questions regarding just the self-branding?
Hi, Avelia. I wanted to address one of the questions that I saw from Natalie about, how do you create a brand at a company that you have been working at? Is that even possible, or do you need to leave and start somewhere else? I'm going to share my personal story just because I think it'll answer part of that. So I've been with Edison for about 9 years now. When I started at Edison, there was a lot of different things happening, right? I was learning the culture, I was learning my role. I didn't really have an opportunity to really quote unquote build my brand, right? Because again, I was learning and I was transitioning. And then it got to a point, like, 3 years into my job at Edison, where I started to think about, like, well, what's my next step in my career? Where am I going? And again, like, what do people know me as, right? I think that was the other part that I started asking myself. Again, that self-reflection, reflecting of, like, how is it that I want to be perceived? What do I want to be known of? What do I want to be known for? And then what are my strengths? And through that process and through that journey, I started looking at opportunities. I started looking at, like, who my audience is that I wanted to really connect with and engage with, right? Again, my goal was that I wanted to have that visibility with leadership. And then the other part of it too is that you have to be very proactive and intentional. And what I mean by that is that, again, who am I trying to engage with? And, like, what are those opportunities that are available across the company? Is there an opportunity for me to present at an upcoming meeting, right? Where I can start showcasing my skills and what I have to offer? Is there an opportunity to be a part of a new project that might be happening in the company that I haven't had an opportunity to work on, right? Is there an opportunity to work cross-departmentally with another department where I can start, giving them that visibility? And then along with that, really thinking about, like, well, how do I get that out there outside of just the immediate teams that I work with? And again, going back to what Avelia said, and I said as well, there's different ways of doing that. I'll tell you this: 9 years later, I feel in a position that I've really have built a good brand at Edison. And again, I tell you this from different experiences, but I've had an opportunity where I'll go into a meeting and they'll be like, "Oh, that's Leo." Like, I don't personally know him, but I know the things that he does at the company, and I've gotten that from our president, Pedro Pizarro. I've gotten it from other executives because I do an intentional job of letting people know what I'm doing, right? And actually, a personal story here too is I had an opportunity to meet Evelia about 2 years ago, and I was working on an event with LinkedIn, and LinkedIn was going to come to our one of our events, and I didn't know Evelia personally, but I knew about her through her social networks and her building her brand and her looking at things that she was working on. And so I was really looking for a host at that specific location where we were going to host that event. And I actually just connected with her. I sent her a message. I'm like, "Hey, Evelia, do you mind if we have, do you mind if I connect with you real quick? I have, an opportunity and I wanted to just share it with you and kind of gather your thoughts." But absolutely, I don't think you necessarily have to leave the company. Of course, everyone's position is different. Everyone's situation is different, but just wanted to share my personal story there as well.
Yeah, no, I totally
Oh.
appreciate that perspective, but I think I can just asking from that same kind of time lapse of I don't want to wait necessarily 10 years to be recognized for my contribution. So speaking from one of my personal experiences of right out of high school, I was hired to work in the food and beverage industry, and they hired me right out of high school. I went through college, and even though there was so much growth and value added, they still saw me as that person that they hired right out of high school, even though I was helping them mitigate their risk and doing contracts. I really had to claw my way, even though my work demonstrated and spoke for itself. And it wasn't until leaving that I was actually able to rebrand and position myself. And I think that is just unfortunate because it was a great company, but I don't have 20 years to try to get to the next, position, even if my work has demonstrated that. So I just, to me, that's why I question, is it possible to rebrand within your current organization, or do they capture you and then always benchmark you at that level, even though you have proven yourself?
I hear you, Natalie, and thank you for sharing that. Personally, I've never been in a job for more than 2 years, 3 years. Sure, I've been here at the company for 8 years, but I've been in 4 or 5 different roles every 2, 3 years. And I think part of that reason is because, I just have to continue to find opportunities to expand my reach, expand my network, expand my skills, right? I think everyone's journey is a little bit different, but I hear that a lot from our employees, right? That, they've done what they can, and they've reached a point where they have to kind of look at that next opportunity. But yeah, interesting feedback, Natalie. Thank you for that.
I think that there's a couple of things that are kind of separate. Okay, so finding your personal brand is separate from a senior leader recognizing your brand, right? So let's go back to the first one. The first one, how do you find your brand, is what do you enjoy doing? When you think about what inspired you, what made you shine, think about those moments. What were you doing? When you figure out the inventory, then you're like, okay, what does this person that does, like for me, it's inspiring people, branding, right? I mean, inspiring people, problem solving, never doing something like doing the same thing every single day. That's not for me. So when I figured that out, I'm like, you know what? I have to go into a leadership position, because that's where I shine. That space right there, it's in my natural talent. Now you put me into being an electrician out, I don't care what you put in front of me, it's never going to happen. I'm never going to be great at that, because that's not my passion. That's not my core. So you have to find what you're great at. And you may not, so that's the constant, almost like take reflection, where you have to self-reflect and figure those things out for yourself. And nobody can figure that out but yourself, right? 2 is, even when I had matured and I said, wow, these are the things that I'm great at, I still wasn't in positions where other people saw me that way for whatever reason. It could be their own unconscious bias. It could be, I remember a manager said to me, you look stressed out because I walk fast, right? And those that know me, I'm only 5'1". So while I'm walking with a person who's 6 feet, they're taking one step, I have to take 2. So, and I'm high energy. That's my natural self. It was too much for my manager. My manager was great, but I know that my manager was not going to look at Avelia and be like, whoa, Avelia is awesome, I'm going to promote her. So you know what? I had to make that change. So those are 2 separate things, Natalie. It's like you have to, once you find this is what I'm great at, you got to find, it's almost like finding a mate. You got to find that perfect alignment with a leader that's going to see you and value your natural talents. When you're in that alignment, that's when you're going to shine.
Yeah.
And you got to move.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I want to add to that too. I know that it sounded like it was a great opportunity initially, Natalie, right? So just broad stretch, right? You really enjoyed working for that company. You were obviously there for some time, but you're young. You don't really know, right? You're learning as you're growing. But either way, when you first start a company, you're like, well, what you have to fill out the water. You have to understand like what the culture is and really what you're seeking in it, right? Is it even the right job for you? Are you in the right space? And if it is, and it's what you want to do and you're passionate about that work, then definitely, there's never a wrong time to start, right? But I think the most important thing is for you to identify what is your true calling? What is it that makes you happy? What are you passionate about? And once you're able to identify that, then you start finding ways to make that happen in your where you're at work, right? Whether it's like, you're interested in possibly HR, but you're working in a completely different industry or field, right? Or team. Well, you can start reaching out to HR and kind of like connecting with those people to just kind of get more information. So it's never a wrong time to start, especially if you're in a company that you're really happy with. All you have to do is start making those initial steps, and then it's like wildfire. Not saying that, but saying that. It's like wildfire. Like, you will start to spread, and it's really all about how much work and effort you're willing to put in and put yourself out there. Like, I think that the biggest thing that people hold back on is that we're scared to try something new. We're scared to put ourselves out there, or we don't know where to start. But honestly, like, for me, when I first started at Edison, I never ever thought I would work at a utility company, first of all. And then secondly, it was like a whole new world. I never was in corporate America. So it was a whole new world for me to adapt to. But then there was so many different ways and opportunities for me to connect with people that I took advantage of those. I seek them out, I looked them up, and I went for it. So it's really, it's never too late. And just finding ways to make yourself seen is really the most important part too, right? So finding ways that you can do that is important. And there are ways, but just like Avelia said, like, if you're working under someone that's not going to help support you or build you, like, look for other opportunities within that company, seek them out, and start connecting with those people, because you never know, actually you might meet a team member from the same company, and it just so happens that, like what Avelia said, that a leadership position or a different type of position opened up, and they're like, hey, I know she's really interested in this, and I know she would be a great team member for this, so let's reach out to her and make that happen. So yeah, I just wanted to give a little feedback on that.
As somebody had asked about what do they mean by sponsorship, finding a sponsor, and I think Monica, I used to train Monica. Thank you, Monica, for joining.
Hi, Avelia.
Hi.
How are you?
This is my booty lifter class. So it's called booty lifter. And she answered it. I mean, you're like right on the money, Monica. A mentor is someone that guides you, that advises you, that based on all their wisdom and their life experience, they're able to give you that guidance, almost like what parents do, right? But a sponsor is someone who advocates for you, someone who's like, you know what? Or you're looking for someone who's great at this. Let me tell you about Leo. Leo is excellent at it, right? And right away, it's like Leo will I've planted a seed. So now when they think about this, when they're looking for someone who does XYZ, I've already, I'm advocating for Leo. I'm putting his name out there, or I'm advocating for Ruby, and I'm telling you, oh my gosh, Ruby should be a great leader in this area because of XYZ. So it's going around and literally advocating. This person is advocating for you, right? And if that's what you want, and you notice that this person, sometimes your mentor and your sponsor is the same, sometimes they're not, right? But if your goal is to have someone advocate for you, then that's what you need to seek out. And it's like what Ruby said, if it doesn't happen in your job, find other avenues, be part of a board, go out in the community, seek out areas. Like, I remember one time I was thinking, oh, maybe I should go into local affairs. And I picked up the phone and I met with he's now our director, and I was like, hey, can we have coffee in the cafeteria at 3 p.m. and just, I just want to, talk to you about what do you guys do in local affairs. Well, come to find out, I wasn't interested as I thought I was. But you have to go out there and put yourself out there, and even if it's like, hey, can I volunteer to help you guys in this area to do, whatever. But you have to be proactive about, you're in control of your destiny. Bottom line, it's not about, well, these were the cards that were dealt with, to you, so figure it out. No, you are in control, and you can go out there and find it for yourself.
Somebody had mentioned really quick, and maybe Leo or Avelia, you can kind of speak or give some guidance on this, but someone had mentioned that, working for IT, you kind of get sometimes pigeonholed into that type of role. Do you have any, suggestions on how somebody can expand or break out of that, if they have other interests?
I think it'll depend. It'll depend on, like, are they trying to go into another area of IT? Are they trying to go into a leadership path? It just really depends on what's that next step that they're looking to do. So with that being said, yes, you can get pigeonholed, but again, how do you transfer some of those skills that you have into, again, let's just say that you want to go into that leadership path, like, how do you translate your experience, your experience with projects, your experience with leading things into an actual leadership path, right? I think it's very important that you think about it from that perspective. And again, like, who do you have to get yourself in front of? I love what the team here has been talking about, sponsorship. Sponsorship is very important because you want to be able to have someone that can advocate for you when you leave out of that room, right? So being able to foster and build those mentorships into actual sponsorships is going to be really, really critical. But again, like, how you market yourself and is going to have to be indicative of like where you want to go, right? So again, if you're someone that is within cybersecurity and you want to go into development, like, well, what is it about your experience that you've been working on in cybersecurity that you can transfer, right? And how are you showing that to your leadership team, to your peers, to your networks, and again, engaging with people as well. So those are some thoughts around that. Any perspective on that from you, Evelia?
I think you said the key word is, what are your transferable skills, right? So I have my degree was specialized in accounting, and I'm a transmission manager. So, and I started out because the way I went into transmission and distribution, which is it's the meat of our company. Because of my analytical skills, right? That you need those analytical skills to in the accounting space. They invited me to be part of the regulatory compliance side of the house. And that's where I got to branch out and get to know a little bit about our business and what we do and what the electricians do outside, and the difference between transmission, distribution, substations. And it was a big learning curve for me because, like I said, I didn't know anything about electricity. I didn't even know what a circuit breaker looked like. But so I had to go out there. I had to become the student immediately. And I was out in the field. I put on my boots and I was out in the field learning the substations because I was going to be successful in this area. So you have to think about, what are the skill sets that I have, and being confident of them, right? And then putting yourself in front of an influencer that will give you that opportunity into that other branch or that other area, right? Whether it's another company, but you really have to be, LinkedIn is, my gosh, LinkedIn is powerful. I mean, whatever you want to do, you can just send someone a message, right? So if you are, for example, want to go work for DreamWorks, look at who works at DreamWorks and just start messaging people, and just somebody's bound to message you back, So it's just a matter of knowing the skills that can transfer into that other area that you want to go into.
Yeah, and while you're ending on that topic, Avelia, I know somebody asked, like, well, how do I get started on LinkedIn? There's different ways, but one simple way is just building your profile. It's literally like your live resume. It's your portfolio, right? It's how you're representing yourself. As far as like how often you should post, it just depends. I would recommend 2 to 3 times a week. Again, if it's valuable content, if it's really valuable to your network. I saw another comment about storytelling. That's really so key, right? Like storytelling as far as like, who you are as a person, what you're working on, your accomplishments, what you're trying to inspire, the influence that you have, that's what really sticks with people. So I think that, along with that, I would recommend that you research on LinkedIn groups that you're interested in, that you want to engage with. And again, the key word there is engage. Don't just add groups and, okay, well, I added groups and that's it. Like, people aren't going to come to you. You have to go ahead and go to them. And then as you build your brand, you're going to magnetically attract those people to you, right? Follow thought leaders in the space that you're interested in. If you're someone that's in the IT space, follow people that are in the IT space that are leaders, right? Learn from them. And then to what Avelia just said, like, connect with them, send them a message. I'll tell you from my personal experience, I get a lot of messages on LinkedIn. And a lot of the messages that I get are from job seekers, right? Because sometimes I'm displayed as a job poster, even though I'm not, but I manage that piece for the team. But I usually connect with people that I see that are active, that really are intentional about like what they're sharing, that again, are really passionate about stuff. Those are the people that I respond to, because again, I get so many emails, but the people that really, care about, what they're putting out there, that I see are passionate, those are the people that I'll usually respond to.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to just speak to that too, with regards to networking. So if you're developing your LinkedIn profile, if you see organizations that are within your area of interest, I would strongly suggest that you get engaged. And attend in person, because that's how you're going to meet people that you may see on LinkedIn, and putting yourself out there is going to be really important. I just want to highlight that the CBA alumni chapter, which Natalie posted in the chat, does host a LinkedIn 2.0 event annually. So that is another event that you can attend that will give you some more details on it. And she posted a couple of additional links of the recorded ones too. So if you don't want to wait and you're eager to get started today, she does have some links in there to some previously recorded events on LinkedIn information. So feel free to tap into. There's plenty of resources out there. So I want to continue this conversation. Let's just do the last slide, Leo. And then we can jump into our plática. And I really want to hear what people are doing now, and continue this conversation about their brands. What are they looking for? How do they want to develop themselves? There's so much to get into. So let's have you do your last slide, and then we can jump into that.
Thank you, Ruby. So I just want to let you all know that Edison is hiring. We have over 150 open positions at the moment. We just recently posted one of our field classes for field planning technicians. It's an entry-level role that is a great opportunity to kind of get your career started at Edison. The qualifications for that job are very minimal. There's paid training. There's hands-on experience that you get in the classroom as well as out in the field, and those are great opportunities. And what planners basically do is they basically look at partnering with new development, new homes, and really work with different partners like the engineers, the designers, the field folks to understand like what the needs are from a power perspective. But aside from those positions, we're hiring for data scientists, cybersecurity specialists, engineers, finance, and many, many more positions. So I encourage you to check out our opportunities on edisoncareers.com. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn as well. You can search me by Leo Labra. And then feel free to just scan the code here if you want to just join our talent network, just to kind of stay connected with our future career opportunities. But again, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you so much, Leo and Evelia. Like I said, let's continue the conversation. Andrea, can you put on Plática slide? One of the things that I wanted to dive into, having both Leo and Evelia here, being able to bring them to do this event was because of me, going out above and beyond and making myself known within Edison. But one thing that I want to highlight that's really important with regards to Leo and Evelia and myself actually is that we are all engaged at Edison within what's called employee resource groups or business resource groups. And so I'm curious to see if any of you are involved in them. Both Leo and I are on the board for the Latino resource group at Edison, and Evelia is actually one of our advisors. And Evelia is also, I think, vice president, I don't know if it's official yet, of the Women's Roundtable, as she had mentioned before. So speaking about ways of branding yourself and of getting engaged, if you have resource groups or employee resource groups where you work, I suggest that you get involved, or recommend that you get involved. I think it's a great space for you to start developing and networking. Another place is within the alumni, right? Being involved with the alumni chapters, putting yourself out there to be on the board. We need board members here at LEAD. It looks like Natalie shaking her head. They may need board members in the CBA alumni also. So, if this is something that you're interested in, if this is a place or whatever the subject matter is, get involved, put yourself out there. For me, myself, sustainability, I'm very, very passionate about sustainability. I got my architecture, but I have moved from construction into and being a sustainability consultant, but sustainability has always been my focus, and that really goes to the branding that I have for myself. And I've been very fortunate enough as my career has developed that, because I've been so engaged with professional organizations and been on boards, that uh, work opportunities have literally landed on my lap. I have never really had to do interviews except for Edison, because I couldn't just do a handshake and walk in. Being able to have those opportunities come to you comes from the amount of time that you're investing in yourself. You're putting yourself out there. So just wanted to know, what is the story that you tell? If you feel you have a strong brand, feel free to unmute yourself and share how it is that you're branding yourself. If you think that there's a technique that you're using right now that you want to share with others, feel free to do so. So this is kind of, Plática time. What are the stories that you're telling about yourself? I want to hear. What do we got going on? Anybody want to share?
I want to share.
Yay.
Sorry, guys. Let me. Sorry. Let me get my camera all set up. Okay. So I'm a DACA recipient. I graduated. My last class at Cal Poly was in 2019. Fall 2019, and I recently started my own brand. So my great grandfather was a merchant at Tecuala, Nayarit. So Tecuala, Nayarit is a little state in Mexico, and he was also president there. So what I'm doing as an alumna, I joined the alumni association and everything. So I majored in kinesiology, exercise science, and I'm kind of making my own brand, Lovis organization. But lately, like, I've been reading a lot of books, and one book I kind of like bumped into. Now that you mentioned brand and stories, it's like storytelling, a story, right? So I kind of got this book. You guys should really purchase this book. It's really good. So pretty much what my brand, how I'm doing it. Well, I'm kind of, it's gonna be like, the idea is making people feel part of something bigger. So making them feel part of a story. So that's how kind of I'm putting my brand out there. And I'm also I have a find your signature. It's part of it as well, but it's mostly athletics. So it's pretty much contributing towards athletics, medicine, and education. So right now, like, I with this whole pandemic and everything, I bought my ACSM association membership. I bought Precision Nutrition, the software and the books and everything to get my certification. And I'm working also on the CSCS certification. But long story short, like, it's gonna be a business organization, if that makes sense. So like what I'm doing with it is I'm saving up. I'm doing a fundraiser. To help me save up for ambulances, and it's gonna be pretty much they're gonna be sent out to that Tecuala, Nayarit. And what's gonna happen? I'll be hiring nurses and trainers. So I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, now that I brought it up, I wasn't thinking. I didn't think I was gonna bring it up, but I mean, I'm kind of putting my story out there. In a way like
That's
that.
great. I love the story. One question I have for you is,
yeah, go ahead.
what are you doing to so you've thought about what it is you want to do, right? And you thought about what your purpose and your passion is, but what are you doing to put yourself out there, to put your brand out there? Have you thought about your strategy for that?
Well, networking, right? I believe with my service as well, like training. I'll be training. Certain gyms are closed right now, but I'll be training So at the same time, I did play basketball at a community college. So I'm promoting myself as well. Do you know what I mean? At the same time.
Yeah, I love it, Zaida. And then one thing that I would maybe think about too is how do other people help promote your brand too, right? Because again, like
Mhm.
people want to be able to see themselves in it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm thinking from that perspective of like, expansion, right? Of course, I think, you're a great role model, but then again, thinking about your audience and like what's, again, your target audience and what's important for them. As you probably know, in branding, there's a concept of like personas. So persona is like, who's the person that you're trying to engage with, right? So what are they thinking? What are they feeling? What's important to them? So maybe kind of thinking about it from that perspective of like, maybe doing a couple personas on your target audiences, and then based off of that, getting insights to build, how you build your strategy and engaging. But I really like the idea that you shared, as well as like how do you get like ambassadors, to share on social media, what your product is and what the story is, because again, like the power of stories is super, super important.
Yeah. The story part. Yeah. So, I mean, it's pretty much being part of a story, and to see the outcome of it, it really all depends. Because it's really depending on how if the people decide to contribute to be part of it or not. Do you know what I mean? So, it's something important to me as an immigrant, but at the same time, like, for example, I don't want to be racial or anything like that, but yeah, like I'm Mexican, I'm immigrant, but I'm not the only uh, ethnicity that is an immigrant, at the same time. So that too, and like, I feel like sports in general really brings a lot of people together when it comes to that. And like, also like, I don't know if you like, I've noticed like my own education throughout my own education learned by doing, like, not a lot of schools, even in middle school, teach science like anatomy and those type of classes. It's not like Cal Poly, like you learn by doing. You learn the concepts, you learn the ideas, you learn the sciences, and you apply it. Like I applied it to myself. So I don't know, like it's been hard. Like I've been reading books after books, but it's coming naturally to me, and it's come to the point, yeah, that it has a meaning to myself, but also like I've accepted that the people that are going to understand and want to be part of it as well are going to understand, and are going to want to be part of it are the people that are going to want to make a change. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. I mean, I think you're right on the path where developing your brand is based about like what I said we're passionate about, and I think it all will start to flow naturally. I think the biggest step is when you need to identify what it is that you want to focus on, and you've already identified that. So now it's just a matter of letting it simmer and let it grow. And it will, as you start to get traction, and it could be one person, it could be two people, but then eventually it's going to grow, right? And I think that's great, and you're finding ways to put your identity into this, right? This is how I identify, and this is what I'm connecting with. So I think that's great. That's what's important to you, and that's what you're focusing on. So that's awesome. Yeah, well, thank you, Zaida. Did I say that right? Zaida, for sharing. That's great. I'm happy to hear that. Thank you for sharing the book.
Yeah, you guys, it's really good. It's a really good book.
You want to put the title and the author on the chat so other people can, in case they're interested?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like Abigail added it. It's called Stories That Stick by Kendra Hall.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Kendra Hall. Yeah. Kendra Hall.
Kendra Hall. Great. So is there anybody else?
Yeah, I would like to share a little bit about the way I'm kind of branding myself. So I graduated Cal Poly Pomona in spring 2019. So I think around Silas time. And the way that I have been branding and really trying to put myself out there as to joining the workforce is that I currently work in the state Senate. So just joining the workforce was this huge, like a huge transition from like school and just like so many things you have to learn. So what I decided to do and kind of like brand myself is that I started to create a platform on social media, so Instagram. And from there, I was able to start a podcast that shares information about things that you have to learn when going into the workforce, such as like negotiating a salary or branding. So what my goal is that I bring guests into my podcast, or sometimes I just do like solo episodes. And my main target is people that from my kind of background, so first generation, college graduate and now professional. So that's kind of the way I started marketing myself. But at the same time, when I'm like marketing myself and interviewing folks, I also add the component of my perspective and entering the workforce. So I think it allows for me to share my niche and the experiences that I'm going through, and then like just work together. And that's how like I'm networking, but also like branding myself. So that was something that I thought I shared.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think being here is a great place, and I'm sure you can find plenty of people you can have on your podcast. Sorry, Evie, what were you going to say?
No, I'm so impressed with Marisol. Like, I'm like, wow, that is so great. What is it that you're like, what is it that you want what do you want to do?
Yeah, so my main goal with the podcast is, to be honest, to create a community and also provide resources. So a lot of the things that I cover in the podcast is related to career development, money management, because when you enter the workforce, the 401k comes up. You're like, what do I do with this? Like, how do I even start, looking at the paperwork? So my goal is to like really educate and help first gens like myself really feel like they can do it, that they have whatever skills it takes to do it, because it's pretty intimidating. And then the last part that I cover in my podcast is like self-care and how to take care of ourselves, and like burnout is real, because I almost like burned out like the first year I entered the workforce. So just being able to share tips, and then also bringing folks that have already a lot of expertise like you, Evelina, just like bringing them in and say what can we do when entering the workforce, tips that have worked out for you, or tips that, that
Yeah.
uplift you.
I think that's all great. Is the podcast in alignment with your end goal for you, for your career?
So I exactly at this moment, I'll be honest, I don't know what my end goal is. So I currently do work in the state Senate. So I do a lot of like legislation, policy work, but that really intertwines with my mission around these pillars. So I'm getting that expertise. I still am not sure what my end goal is, but I know that people have connected me through my platform to my job.
That's awesome. Yeah. Just I think that's all great. And just remember that as you're doing all these great things, because I think it's so wonderful, especially in our culture, that when we've been blessed with education, a great job, and this platform, like, that's a blessing, to provide it back to the community, right? Always turn around and give back, right? Because that's how we make our community stronger, and that's how we grow those Hispanic executive numbers. That's how they go up, right? And just take inventory of the things that you're naturally great at, right? So you're obviously very resourceful. You obviously are very good at putting people together, bringing them in. You're creative. You try to find platforms where people can help each other out. Those are great assets. So just keep an inventory, so that when that spark comes and you're like, oh, this is what I would love to do, that now you know what you're great at, because you have that inventory. So now you know your natural gifts, and now you know how you can serve back.
Yeah. It's asking those tough questions, but yeah, I'm gonna be journaling and working on those big questions that they were shared today.
And Marisol, we're probably going to have to hit you up to help be a presenter on one of our Taco Tuesdays and speak to the work that you're doing. I think it'd be great.
Yeah, I'm happy to help in any way. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? We have time for one more. Anybody else want to share what they're doing?
Hi, I'm
Yay.
Kathy. Hi.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi, it's nice to see everybody. I'm just listening to everyone's story, and I really appreciate all of you being vulnerable and sharing your story because when you talk about branding, I've been in my profession for a long time already, and so I find it that I still need to be relevant in what's happening, what the trends are, and so I'm still branding. I've been in my profession. I'm an elementary school principal, and I still have to find ways to communicate with my families, my students, speak the language that my families and my kids are speaking. So I think it's still important, no matter what age you are or how far along you are in your career, you have to continue to be in touch with what's happening, whether it be being active in professional organizations that apply to your field, or just like me right here. I mean, I graduated in the doctorate program 2017, and like I said, I'm further along in my career, but I still find that the most important thing for me, or when I see or when I hire or interview, is about the growth mindset. So when you graduate college, your learning does not just stop there. I mean, you really have to learn from continue to learn from others. Just because you have the degree doesn't mean that it ends there. So, and that's the purpose of me being here today, is because I want to learn from folks like you, so that I can still continue to be relevant in my field and continue to grow. So although years ago when I graduated college, I said, okay, that's it, I'm done, and counting down the years, I've been in school for 24 years, and even in my own professions, I'm doing professional learning, professional development. It does not stop. So that's what I've learned in my career. So please don't think that you're going to stop what you're going to do after you leave college. You please make sure that you continue to have that growth mindset, because if you do, your supervisor, your manager, your boss, they're going to see that, and they're going to invite you, and they're going to trust you and invite you into other projects. What's going to lead you into networking and meeting other people that are going to be in your interest. And as you grow over the years, you're going to learn that your maturity, and you're going to learn your interest. And I just like to say that you are who you hang out with, who you are with, because like I said, even though I graduated a long time ago, I just thought, okay, after every degree, I thought, okay, I'm done. But as I talk to people, network people, these people push me to do better. And so just make sure that you are aware of who you are with others, because they're going to be the ones that are going to be your circle. They're going to be your sister circle, or whoever it is that you end up being interested in. But just make sure that whatever you're interested, or it's going to be relevant to you at that time, but make sure you grow in the position that you do, no matter where you are in your life.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I have to say, Evelia has a daughter that just graduated, and I think she's like my idol for mom status. When my kids are older, I want my kids to look up to me. But you know
That's
what? You brought up a
hilarious.
really
I had
good
her at
point.
17, so I didn't even know what I was doing. I was like, what? Graduated? What?
But Kathy, you brought up a really good point, and maybe Evelia and Leo, you can kind of touch on this. Talking about maybe you might be in the same career path, but there's growth, right? So you're moving up. Now, what is there anything to be said with regards to, I don't want to say rebranding, but enhancing your brand, or as you're growing, as you're developing, right? What worked for you at the beginning of your career, you have a change and it may no longer work for you at that time, right? So what are your thoughts on addressing rebranding or enhancing your brand? What are your thoughts on that?
Leo, did you want to? I had some thoughts, but I wanted to give you an opportunity.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I have to say that I love what Kathy said about the growth mindset. I get a chance to work really closely with some of our HR partners, specifically in the enterprise learning space, that are focused on like, well, what are the skills of the future? Like, what are the skills that we want our employees to have? And there's been a lot of research, a lot of studies done. And that's one of the ones, like this continuous learning mindset, right? So when I think about that, there's a lot of reasons why, because things are changing all the time. If you look at like last year was an anomaly, right? Like, but we had to adjust, we had to adapt to what was happening, right? And so I think that as we progress as professionals, like it's very, very important and critical that we think about that, and that we continue to expand our skills, that we continue to expand and learn new things as well, whether it's certifications, whether it's new tools. I think that's something that you should have in your mind every year. Like, well, what's one or two things that I want to add to my toolkit, right? Because to your point, Ruby, I think that's an excellent question. Like, well, should you continue to brand yourself? And the question is yes. You think about just consumer brands. If a consumer brand does not adjust, they're gonna die. They're gonna die out, right? They're gonna become irrelevant. So it's very important that you're adding to your toolkit and that you're adding these tools and that you're continuously growing and maturing your brand, so that way you can stay relevant.
Could I just add something else? And this goes with any field. We know that when we are in school, they talk about the R's, arithmetic, reading, writing, right? But now with our students, we're teaching them these other skills and their life skills, and this can apply to anywhere. We're talking about the 4 C's now: creativity, communication, collaboration, and critical thinking. So if you have that on top of the 3 R's, you'll be fine in any field. So just make sure that you keep up with the 4 C's, because that's what we're teaching in schools right now on top of the 3 R's.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what was the 4 C's?
So it's creativity, communication, collaboration, and critical thinking. So those are the life skills that we are introducing or teaching our kids on top of the 3 R's.
Oh, okay, that's awesome, the communication. So I think one very important thing that I learned throughout my career is being self-aware. Like that, if you're not self-aware and you are not, you don't realize how you impact other people, that can be career suicide. It doesn't matter how talented you are. If you are negatively impacting your circle or the people around you, the influencers that can make and break your career, it can be very detrimental to your reputation and to your brand. So one thing that you always want to be self-aware, it's how you impact other people. When you have stopped impacting, it's time to revisit, go back to square one. Okay, what do I need to do to be relevant again? Do I need to learn a new skill? Do I need to adapt my my communication? Like, going back to, I had a manager that felt that I was stressed out because my energy was high and I would walk fast, right? So I knew that going all like this is too much for him. So I had to slow down, like my energy had to be lower when I would talk to him so that he could listen. Because if I come out like this, I blocked him. It's done. He's not going to listen to me, even if my idea and the content of that of my conversation was super valuable. It doesn't matter because I've blocked him. So you always have to be very self-aware and really zone in on those communication skills, because you really have to have the art of communicating to your audience so you can be impactful. So always be self-aware of how you're impacting other people and be adaptable, right? Always be adaptable to change, because if you don't adapt, you're going to fall behind. You have to always adapt and continuously improve. Like Leo said, whether it's, shadowing someone in a job, learning a new skill, learning a new software, learning how to take advantage of social media. You have to be on top of like whatever is the new, whatever. And just because something worked yesterday, it doesn't mean it works today, right? So be adaptable and be self-aware so that you can adjust. You can adjust how you're going to rebrand.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Zayn.
When you said like knowing how to communicate with your audience and knowing how to stick, like, I guess you would say stick around, because you can say you can create a brand, be an entrepreneur and everything and all that, and have your own business, but if you don't stick around, it has no purpose. So when it comes to like having your company, your brand growing and have it stick around for years, do you guys think, like you were saying how you need to learn how to adapt, do you think infographics would help a lot when it comes to social media and you, what's the word, communicating, I guess, with the audience and make them feel part of a community. Do you guys think infographics would help?
I don't know the answer to that question because I'm not familiar with infographics, so I wouldn't know.
Okay.
I think you would have to. What is your key? Who is your key? Your key audience, and is that something that you have to target your audience, right? Identify who's your audience and figure out what works, and if it doesn't, adjust, course correct.
Yeah, I agree with you. And again, Zayda, I work really closely with our social media team and managing our brand. And what we think about is like, well, what's important to our audience, right? Like, what's like the key message that we're trying to deliver to them? So the idea of like personalization, to ensure that the information that we're delivering to them sticks and is relevant. And again, sometimes it really has to be simple and easy. I think and that's the thing, like, you think about Nike, just do it, right? It's how much more simple can you get than that? Then, just do it, right? So I think just you have to think about that perspective as well, especially when it comes to social media.
You know what's funny? Starting my own brand and everything, that just do it, the way, like, I recently, like, not gone against Nike or nothing like that, nothing personal with it, but like it made me kind of like create my own athletic, you can say, quote. I'm going to show you guys. I kind of started this during this whole pandemic just because the whole Kobe situation kind of made me upset. But I know when it comes to infographics, you're communicating with audience, but you have to put information out there that not a lot of people are going to just find out there, So like, I know with the CSCS membership and getting the certification done and everything, I can put out like a small monthly newsletter. That's what I'm going to do as well when it comes to with my brand, in terms of what scientists are doing to improve and all that science stuff. But I kind of did this. Let me show you. Sorry.
Well, thank you, Zayda, for sharing that. Oh.
Are you? Sorry, who's talking?
Yeah. Well, just to be conscious of time, thank you everybody for joining us for our first Taco Tuesday. We hope you are able to take with you some really valuable information that Avelia and Leo shared with us today, and start setting your brand. And please, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us. And if you need support with that, we're more than happy to help. Maybe Avelia or Leo, if you want to drop in your LinkedIn or contact information, that'd be great. And if you're not following us on social media, please do. We have a LinkedIn account, we have an Instagram account, and we have a Facebook. So find us wherever you're at. We're trying to be as active and updating that as much as possible. And that's it. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Leo. Thank you, Avelia, for your time and sharing your insight with us. And we'll see you soon. Have a good night. Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.